Hey guys, welcome back. This is Bernard from the BTNHD, and yes, today is all about deploying SCCM version 1911 with MDT. And before we start, this whole concept is done with the hydration kit video that I did with you guys. I took the hydration kit MDT stuff and I modified it for my environment. A couple of things I'm not going to go in detail because if you go to the hydration kit, it gives you kind of more details of how to use that particular process. Now from here, I wanted to take the hydration kit and the SCCM part and deploy it within my environment. I had a lot of issues. I know within the hydration kit video, I only deployed the domain controller and the domain controller was successful. I feel like if I'd have pushed out the SCCM or the MDT server, I probably got some of these problems, but I'm going to show you guys the workaround that I did. So let's get started. So I am running everything within my Azure HyperV machine. The server is server 2019. It's the same server that I used for the hydration kit one. The only difference is that my MDT was completely rebuilt, fresh out of the box. And the only thing that I copied over is the SCCM stuff. Now make sure you catch that hydration kit because it shows you what I copied over. Okay, so hopefully you guys watch that first. So within my MDT workbench, within my task sequence, you're going to see that I eliminated the domain controller and the MDT, and I just left the task sequence to deploy the SCCM part. First things first, we need to download the latest technical preview of SCCM. So I went to the site and I downloaded the latest one, which was 1911. And once I downloaded, I opened up the downloads folder and I double clicked on the file because we need to extract the stuff within that exe file. I clicked on browse, and within browse, I have a particular folder within the desktop called HyperV Manager v1911. And I want all that stuff to be dropped in there and unzip. It's going to start unzipping all that stuff. And once it's done, it's going to give you this successful. Press OK. We're going to close that and bam. Now, if you pay attention to the hydration kit on that video, I told you guys with that SCCM version that we took, I think it was 1806 or 1906, we took the auto run, the SMS setup, and the splash files, and we moved it over to the app folder within our deployment. So that's basically what I'm doing, okay? I just took those three particular files and I moved them over to the install-config manager sources. Remember, sources is where we drop all our installation files, and outside of sources there is a special Windows script file that calls the source folder and starts deploying the stuff. Now I did have some issues during my deployment and I'm going to show you guys how I fix it, so don't freak out. Next thing that we need to do is get the prerequisites for SCCM. So it's the same process that we did within the hydration kit. We need to go inside the SMS, bin, x64, and we need to locate the setup DL. Right? So once you locate that particular file, we need to double click on it and it's going to give you the downloader. And what you're going to do is from here, we're going to click on browse. And we need to browse to our prerequisite folder that we created within our application, within our deployment share. So I clicked on browse and I basically navigated to install-config manager. Now this folder is located within our application folder within our deployment share. Okay. So once you pick that folder, click OK. See right here, deployment share, applications, install-config manager prerequisites. And next thing that we need to do is download. So it's going to start downloading the files. Again, it really depends. There's a lot of files. And once it's completed, you should be okay. Okay. So that's one step done. The next thing we need to do is, again, within the hydration kit, we needed to locate our extend AD schema exe file. So we need to go inside deployment share, applications, config-extend AD for config manager. And then within the sources file, we need to drop in that extend schema for the AD.exe file. So to locate that, you're still inside your setup bin x64. So what you're going to do is locate this file and you're going to copy and paste it over to this location. I had some issues with this as well, and I'm going to show you guys what I did. Now, next thing that I did was, because I'm not using the hydration kit process because within the hydration kit process, they wanted you to import a reference image. I just took a Windows Server 2019 ISO and I just imported a clean, non-reference, not updated Windows Server 2019 to my deployment share. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm importing an operating system. So once that's completed, you're going to see your servers. I'm going to go inside the task sequence node. I'm going to double click on our task sequence. Again, we only have one. I cleaned it up. I removed the domain controller and the MDT from the hydration kit. And I double clicked on it and we need to go inside a task sequence. Now, when you click on task sequence, it's going to give you a warning. And the reason why it's giving you a warning is because it's trying to point to the operating system that we had within the hydration kit, which is the reference image. Now, I'm going to click OK from here and just go inside the install operating system and now click on browse. And when you click on browse, you pick your flavor. Now, I picked the server edition, right? Desktop version for Server 2019. I clicked on that, clicked OK, and then I'm going to click apply. And don't freak out if you see the X. Eventually, that X is going to go green, which is a good thing. So once that's completed, just click OK and get out of there. We need to get inside the advanced configuration folder. And once you expand that, we need to get inside media. And within media, again, this is a clean deployment. I did not use the hydration kit process, so I should not have a media file in there, but we need to create one. So we're going to right click on the media folder and then go and click on new media. And then we're going to give it a media path. I gave it the C drive and then click on next and then next again. And it's going to start creating our media. So once it's completed, you're going to get this. Click on finish. And there goes our media 001. I'm still taking the same process as the hydration kit. And now that my media folder is created, on the hydration part, there is a control folder that we need to drag and drop inside our ISO content deploy folder. Okay, so we're taking that control folder within our hydration kit and we're replacing it inside our new folder that we just created, our new media, which is ISO, right? ISO, content deploy, and you're going to see a folder here. When you drag and drop that folder over, it's going to want you to replace it, so just replace the files. Now, when you double click on that new control folder, you're going to see a couple of new things. Now, you're definitely going to see your SCCM1, your domain controller, and your MDT. Now, I only want the SCCM part because I already have a domain controller already in place within my infrastructure. So I'm going to select the domain controller and the MDT. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to delete it. So this is the only one that I want. Now, we're going to double click on that file because when you double click on that file, it has a lot of customization that is based on the hydration kit. I don't want that. I want to change a lot of the stuff. For example, I want to definitely change the computer name. I want to change the domain. I want to change the admin domain. I definitely want to change the password. I want to change the location. And I definitely want to change all the IP address stuff to fit my infrastructure. So that's basically what I did. I changed all that information to fit my environment. So once you make all those modifications, just make sure you save that file. You're going to open up your MDT workbench, go inside media, right click on your media and go to properties. And within properties, I'm going to start making modifications. First thing I want to do is kind of uncheck generate 86-bit boot image. I just want the 64-bit, and I'm definitely going to change the ISO file name. Now, next thing we need to do is go inside rules, right? Click on the rules tab and start making modifications here. So the modifications that I made was just change the org name and the time zone and the admin password. I'm definitely going to keep this because this is a public key, right? Just keep it. It's not that bad. And that's basically what I did. I changed it to my information to fit my environment. Once you make all your modifications, make sure you click on apply and then you're able to close it. You're going to right click on your media. And now what we're going to do is update the media content. And this process takes a while, right? It took between 5 to 10 minutes because it is a big ISO. For me, it was about 15 gigs. Once it's completed, you're going to get the process completed successful. That's a good thing. And we're going to click on finish. Once that's done, you want to minimize your workbench and then just locate your ISO. This is the ISO that we need to mount to our virtual infrastructure. Or you can burn it into a flash drive and then boot into it. And then you can start deploying your operating system with SCCM and SQL. I did not go over the SQL stuff or the MDT stuff, because that is the same thing within the hydration kit. So hopefully you guys review that video first. So once that's done, I'm going to open up my HyperV Manager. I'm going to click on New. I'm going to pick Virtual Machine. I'm going to get the wizard here. Definitely going to click on Next. The name that I'm going to provide is BTNHD-V SCCM. Click Next. For your generation, I pick Generation 2. For memory, again, the standard memory is about 6 gigs to 16 gigs. So I provided about 8 gigs for this virtual machine. Make sure you give it a lot of memory, between 6 to 16 gigs, because you're installing SQL, you're installing MDT, and you're also installing SCCM. From there, click on Next, establish your network adapter. And from here, I kind of recommend providing a huge hard drive space. So the 127 default one is not enough. I gave it around 500 gigs because, believe it or not, it kind of partitions itself to 2 hard drives. So make sure you give it enough space. Click Next there. And then you want to pick Install an operating system from a boot image. And then pick your location. So click on Browse, and then I browse to that ISO that we created, or we updated the media and created an ISO. Click Next there, click Finish, and you're done. So got a new virtual machine. You're gonna double click on it, open it up. We're gonna click on Start, and then we're gonna hit Enter to boot from the DVD, right? It's gonna start loading the files. Once it loads up the file, bam, there you go. On the hydration kit, remember there was 3 of them. There was the domain controller, and there was also the MDT task sequence. For here, we only have 1 task sequence because I deleted all that nonsense. I just want to focus on the SCCM part. So we are going to select it, click on Next, and it's going to start processing itself, partitioning the hard drive, installing the operating system. It's going to get to the desktop eventually, and it's going to start gathering the information. First install that it's going to do is the BG info. It's going to start installing all the config prerequisites that it needs, like the web services, the IIS, the ASP.NET, the frameworks, all that stuff. It's going to start installing the SQL, and boom. This is the first error that I received. I was thinking to myself, if I'd have ran the SCCM part within the hydration kit, would this happen as well? I don't know. So this is one of the problems that I received, and the way that I fixed it, and I think it was my mistake, because again, I'm not using a fully up-to-date reference image, and it was missing a couple of things, which I'm going to show you guys how I fixed it. Once it processes that, it's going to start setting the AD permissions for the config manager. It's going to start installing the MDT stuff, and then you're going to get hydration completed. If you go to Active Directory, one of the things that I noticed is that the domain join did work. That was a huge plus. I told the custom settings INI file to drop it within a BTNHD OU. That's working. That's great. So the question was, why did the extend AD schema did not work? The reason why is because that particular error, I Googled it, did a little bit of research, and it seems that it needs a bunch of Visual Studio C++ stuff on the server for that to work correctly. So I found this script online. There is a Visual C++ wrapper. I tried that out, and it didn't work out for me. So I did a little bit more research. I found this right here, which was a PowerShell script. PowerShell script works flawless. I had no issues with it. I will kind of share this out for you guys, so don't worry about that. And I will also share out my deployment files of what I changed, so you guys can have it within your environment and then make modifications. So this is the script. Again, I will provide it. Don't worry about it. And these are the folders that I had to create for the script to work. As you can see right here in the bottom, the stuff that's not highlighted, these are the folders that I use for that Microsoft Visual C++ that deploymentresearch.com uses. They have like a Visual Basic script that uses a wrapper to install it. That wasn't working within my environment. I don't know why, but the PowerShell one worked. And the way that the PowerShell worked was you had to have this file system, this folder system. So once I built this out, I had all the particular files within the folders. I went inside my workbench. I created a new application. This is the name that I gave the application. And for the quiet install, I ran this command. And I'm going to show you guys. This is where I ran PowerShell.exe, execution policy bypass with a command of the following to run the PowerShell. and architect either 86 or 64, and I wanted to show the progress because I wanted to see if it's working. So I reran the task sequence again. And the way that you rerun the task sequence is you update the media, take the new ISO, mount it to your new virtual machine, do the whole process again of creating a new virtual machine, run it again, and I saw this. This was great. I was like, yes, no problem. I also wanted to check within the virtual machine if the virtual C++ was installing. I went inside the control panel of the server, and I did see that the Microsoft Visual C++ was installing. So I was super, super happy. When I got into the part of the task sequence to extend the schema, if you go inside the virtual machine that's being created with you with the SCCM on the C drive, there is a extend AD schema text file. If you double click on it, you are going to see one of the lines that it's going to say successfully extended the Active Directory schema. So that worked out. So yes, I fixed that first problem. Another problem that I had was, for some reason, when the deployment was over, I was trying to click on start and I was trying to find my database. I was trying to find the SCCM. The database didn't complete successfully for some reason, and the SCCM did not install successfully. Now, if the database did not install successfully, SCCM will not install, right? That makes sense. So if you go inside the C drive of the virtual machine that you're trying to install SCCM, you're going to see a config manager setup. One of the problems that I had this error. I Googled it. I didn't really get any great information on it. So it was basically me scratching my head and playing around, configuring it. And the way that I actually did it was the following. First things first, I needed to fix my SQL because my SQL database was not installing correctly. So I created a configuration file for my SQL. This file, I actually got it from deploymentresearch.com. And the only thing that I changed was this right here to fit my environment. All right. So I changed it to BTNHD, which is my domain. And I changed that to, again, to fit my environment. So once I made those modifications, again, the hydration kit part on the SQL side had a source folder. I removed the source folder. And I removed that visual script that I had, and I just put all the content of the SQL Server outside, and I had that config file. Okay, this config file is my answer file to be used for my setup. Now, within my MDT, I located the SQL Server, and I made modifications on the install command. So I'm calling the setup with a parameter of configuration file equals to the ini file. Okay, so that's how I got the SQL Server to run correctly and installed with no problem. Boom. Next problem. I got the SQL running. Great. Why is my config manager not installing? So within the config manager, there is a config manage unintended file that the hydration kit provides. If you look at it, there's a bunch of information that you need to change for it to work correctly. Especially if I want the SCCM to be added within my domain controller, I need to make a lot of modifications. So these are the modifications that I made. I made modifications to the site code, the SDK server. I also made modifications to the management point to fit my infrastructure, the DP, and also the SQL Server name. This is very important. You got to make sure that the SQL Server name is exact, because if not, the SCCM, when it's installing, it needs to establish that connection to your SQL Server to install correctly. If you want, you can even change the database name. I think I left it as the default, and then also the Cloud Connector server, I changed that as well. Okay. Update your media. Once you update your media, take that ISO, create another virtual machine, mount that ISO to that virtual machine, boot to that ISO, do the same process, and then you're going to see that your extend schema passes. Why? Because your Visual C++ is up to date on the machine. You want to push that out first before you extend the schema. Your SQL Server database is installed correctly. You actually have a database ready for SCCM to create an actual database into it. And then once it gets to this part, it's going to start installing, right? I didn't get this. This went real quick. And then the MDT part installed. But when it was time for the MDT to integrate to SCCM, it was failing. Why? Because SCCM wasn't there and it was looking for it. and it was just erroring out. When you get to this part takes a long time. Eventually, once it's completed, you're going to get this. Again, I got the same thing when I was getting errors. But when you click on Start and you locate within your Start menu, you're going to see your Microsoft System Center folder. Awesome. And if you open up your Management Studio, again, the Management Studio was actually installed during the deployment process. You're going to see within your database, that database within that config unintended file. And again, I didn't change it. You are able to change this database to whatever you want. Just make sure you do it within that unintended file. And then last but not least, if you go to Start, click on your System Center Configuration Manager, you're going to see that your SCCM loads up. Now, if you look up right here, my site code, I changed it to BTN, and it changed it. Now, I think the next thing that we need to do is create boundaries and start creating collections and all that other good stuff. But a successful deployment using MDT and deploying SCCM. I had a lot of problems. One of the problems that I had was the extend part, which fixing that was installing the Visual C++ stuff first. Second thing was the database. I was having issues installing the database, but I got that working by modifying or creating a configuration file and just having the setup.exe point to the config file rather than having a Visual Basic script do it for me. And the last one was configuring the config manager unintended file correctly for my environment for SCCM to talk to the database correctly and to establish itself within the server successfully. And that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you catch the hydration kit because it will kind of detail where I got the stuff and dragging and dropping like the SQL server, the MDT stuff, the Studio Manager. All that stuff was done within the hydration kit, which I did not focus on that here. My main focus was deploying SCCM correctly. I had a bunch of errors. I show you guys how to fix it, all the workarounds that I did. I'm hoping that you guys enjoy this video. Leave comments right below. Don't forget about hitting that like button. And make sure you subscribe and make sure you share the video. And I catch you guys on the next deployment. Peace out.